Good evening. It is a true privilege to be with you once again, to see your faces, speak with you, share my heart, and then return home. What a lovely evening we are having, with a beautiful, refreshing breeze drifting through the air. All is well. Everything is precisely where it needs to be. There are no errors in this vast cosmic dance. Each of you remains a divine spiritual being, whether you choose to believe it or not. Many of you are exerting effort to try to stop or control your thoughts. Yet this is a waste of time. You can't do this. Trying to control our mind and stop our thoughts, as Ramana Maharshi taught us, is like a thief becoming a policeman to catch the thief. In other words, the thief that becomes the policeman will not catch the thief, because he himself is the thief. In the same way, using the mind to halt its own thought stream is futile. The mind's very nature is to keep moving and perpetuating its own existence. Trying to silence your thoughts is like aiming to annihilate the mind, and the mind instinctively resists this. By its very nature, it wants to fill your awareness with small concerns, notions, and superstitions, thereby ensuring its continued activity. What then should we do? The answer is, we do absolutely nothing. There is no special action you must take to rid yourself of thoughts. When you stay with your sadhana, meditation, yoga, or whatever, you might experience moments of temporary relief, a few moments of peace. But then the restless waves of thought crash back, more forcefully than before. Techniques, while they can help you become more centered for a short while, do not permanently quiet the mind. Instead, genuine cessation of thought occurs when you rest in your true nature. As many spiritual teachings indicate, without the mind becoming still, there can be no true realization, no genuine liberation. Only when the mind is utterly quiet and thoughts subside do you experience the vast freedom that is your birthright. Despite popular phrases like controlling the mind or halting thought, these terms can be misleading. You cannot truly employ the mind to stop the mind. It wants to keep wandering, imagining, and creating. But the moment you simply let go of engaging with thoughts, an inherent peace, a limitless sense of joy, and a boundless bliss arise naturally. When the thinking mechanism dissolves, these qualities come forward, and you awaken to what has always been within you. You don't have to monitor, evaluate, or witness your thoughts in a way that invests additional mental energy. Observing or labeling thoughts might seem like a valid spiritual practice, but too much of that can fortify the mind, giving it more power to persist. Many of you have spent years practicing different methods to curtail your thoughts, using all sorts of meditations or mental exercises. When you look back, you may notice that these attempts just made your mind stronger, not weaker. Trying to impose strategies only fuels the mind and gives it more power. So the highest approach is also the simplest. Do nothing at all to stop your thoughts. Just refrain from adding any mental fuel to the thinking process. As you remain quietly present, the mind begins to lose its hold over you. When you suspect you need to watch or track each thought, you are inadvertently strengthening the very movement you wish to dissolve. If you spend your time simply being, with no intention of messing with thoughts, their power over you dies. You might wonder, don't enlightened beings completely eradicate their thoughts? From the outside, it may appear that realized sages have no thoughts at all. Yet as long as there is a physical form, some vestige of thought activity remains. But the crucial point is that the sage's thoughts lack any real force. I might muse, when I get home I'll enjoy some ice cream. That is certainly a thought. However, for a liberated being, the thought is comparable to a rope that was burnt. It might retain an outline, but it turns to ash when you touch it. Only your thinking gave it energy, power. There is no residual energy feeding the thoughts. A sage's thinking is like an electric fan unplugged from the socket. The blades continue spinning for a moment, but the electric current has been withdrawn. There's no power after a while. Similarly, when one dwells in that liberated state, all mental activity is devoid of its original potency. Hence, we can say that for a sage, although thoughts might arise, they are effectively powerless. That is why it is often described that a sage has no real thoughts. They are more like faint echoes than living forces, allowing the realized one to abide naturally in absolute reality and pure awareness. In that space, one resides in Sat Chit Ananda, being, consciousness, bliss. So how do you arrive at that state? It's not by battling the mind or chasing thoughts away. Instead, you allow them to arise and fade without paying them any heed, without reacting or responding. Do not give them a story or a conclusion. If you decide you have to forcibly end your thinking, the mind will try to fight back. Instead, gently slow down. Notice the mental activity without involvement, and let it pass on its own. This may feel unfamiliar at first, but consider the moment right after you wake up, when you're still in a groggy state. Your initial thoughts are weak, hardly grabbing your attention. That is the natural condition you want to encourage. A simple, easy neglect of the mental chatter. You do not have to declare, "I am ignoring my thoughts." In fact, the less you articulate about ignoring them, the better. Simply remain neutral, and your mind will gradually settle on its own. You will soon discover something remarkable. As your mind slows, you experience a deep peace, an unshakable calm, and even unprovoked happiness, regardless of external problems or the chaos in the world. Economic hardships, natural calamities, or human conflicts. You find yourself unexpectedly serene. That tranquility emerges precisely because your mind has lost its tight grip, and you've ceased fueling it with struggle. It's also important to note that you're not the one actively slowing your thoughts by an act of will. You, as the ego-identified person, cannot accomplish this in any lasting way. Instead, it's the simple withdrawal of attention that allows the mind to come to rest. When you do not chase, reject, or rework your thoughts, they fizzle out on their own. Think of a friend who constantly seeks your attention. If you ignore them, they eventually drift away. You don't argue or push them away. You simply don't engage, and they lose interest. That's the approach to use with your thoughts. Another key insight is that thoughts, whether labeled good or bad, are ultimately imposters in the realm of your true being. There is no meaningful distinction between good and bad thoughts when it comes to self-realization. Both categories keep you in the realm of mental involvement. People often think, I should replace negative thoughts with positive ones. However, in the highest understanding, even so-called positive thoughts are still part of the mental play. The true freedom arises in leaving thoughts alone entirely. Many spiritual or meditative techniques, whether it's certain breathing exercises, mindfulness practices, or other structured methods, can give you short-term relief or focus. But typically, they do not finish off the root of thinking. Practitioners might feel more centered for a time, but they don't necessarily experience permanent liberation. The reason is that these methods often rely on the mind to transform the mind. The ego might get involved, subtly whispering, I am getting really good at this. I am becoming advanced. Yet that sense of self-importance is precisely the ego continuing to assert itself. Hence we return to the truly effortless method. Do nothing. That phrase, doing nothing, is vital because in the end, reality itself is emptiness. All phenomena, including your thoughts, spring out of the same emptiness. Liberation or bondage, from the highest vantage point, do not exist as absolute truths. They are concepts overlaying what simply is. By doing nothing, you align with your own real nature, which is pure being. It may sound paradoxical. How can I do nothing in order to stop my thoughts? Yet it's precisely because trying to stop them uses the mind. In stillness, in total non-engagement, you discover the space where thoughts cease on their own. And with that cessation, a wondrous happiness, a quiet but profound joy, and a gentle sense of peace embrace you. This is the real you, unconditioned, infinite, radiant. Take a moment, even right now, to let thoughts come and go without reacting. Thoughts might seem pressing or even intimidating, but observe how they dissolve when you refrain from adding your personal commentary. They have no actual source in consciousness. They arise from nowhere and vanish into nowhere. Like the illusion of the sky touching the mountaintop, thoughts seem real at a glance, but upon inspection, they are hollow. When you ask who is thinking, the immediate answer is that it is the ego. And as the thoughts dwindle, the ego diminishes correspondingly. The ego mind thrives on continuous ideation. Cut off its supply and it loses its hold, eventually vanishing. Once the ego fades, there is nobody left to claim ownership of the thinking process. But then, one might ask, how can I live my life without thinking? The beauty is that you continue to function seamlessly, but without the burden of self-centered commentary. It's the same as noticing that a realized sage may still say, I'm going to eat now, yet there's no sticky personal identification behind those words. The thought arises more like a faint echo, lacking emotional charge. It's like the burned rope that looks intact until you touch it, and it crumbles without the power source of personal attachment. The mental processes are entirely superficial and cause no trouble. This might appear contradictory. We say that in a liberated state, there are no real thoughts, yet day-to-day life seems to require some form of thinking. However, in that awakened condition, you naturally behave and respond that clinging to I, me, or mine. It's a spontaneous existence, guided by the self rather than by the restless mind. You discern precisely what to do, what to avoid, which words to share, and when silence is most fitting. All of this unfolds with ease and clarity, as if a deeper intelligence is orchestrating events, which in truth it is. Why do we go to such lengths discussing this? Life moves so rapidly. We grow older, our bodies change. We see loved ones depart, and one day we too face what seems like death. Yet all of this transpires within the grand illusion of time. If we cling to the notion of ourselves as merely a body-mind, we inevitably believe in decline, aging, and dissolution. The world's problems appear overwhelming, threatening our sense of security. But when you awaken to your real essence, that which is never born and never dies, these changing forms lose their grim seriousness. You no longer identify with fleeting phenomena. You dwell in a reality that transcends cycles of creation and destruction. That is what you truly are, this timeless, formless awareness. You cannot confine yourself to concepts of good or bad, gender, shape, or personality. All of those are fluctuations in the dream. In your fundamental nature, you are pure consciousness, boundless, radiant, utterly free. Beauty, joy, and harmony flow effortlessly when you rest in your essence. This is your true nature. This is who you are. Recognize it here and now and be free. It all begins by letting your thoughts slip away of their own accord. You now have an insight into how to release the thinking process. There is no formidable obstacle you must defeat. You need not fear the events of the world. Those arise in the play of appearances, but they do not define or limit the changeless reality within you. The real source of all creation is none other than the pure consciousness you are. Each time I pause while speaking, you have the opportunity to experience a small taste of that silence, that spaciousness, which is akin to samadhi. In these tiny gaps, notice how serene and open you feel. The simple pause can be an invitation for you to sense your inner vastness. Let yourself be cleansed of old karma, samskaras, past conditioning, and the limiting stories you've carried for so long. Allow everything you think you are, every memory, every worry, every interpretation to flow away from you completely. In this moment, right here, you are boundless and luminous. You are absolutely, completely free. Completely free. Completely and utterly free. That freedom is not a future event. It is your natural state. As you abide in this realization, you come to see that no matter what is happening on the surface, no matter how the world ebbs and flows, you remain the unchanging presence. Problems lose their capacity to create anxiety when you are not identified with them. To sustain this awareness, remember to do absolutely nothing about your thoughts. Permit them to drift in and out without interest. Then the ego dissolves and only the self remains, shining as pure conscious being. This is the essence of true peace and lasting happiness. By stepping away from the mental circus, you awaken from the dream of separation. You discover that all beings, all things, and all appearances arise within the vastness of consciousness. You see your oneness with the entire universe while also honoring the apparent diversity. Compassion, love, and kindness spring forth effortlessly because there is no solid other to fight against. You realize that the same awareness looking out through your eyes animates every living creature. So do not underestimate the power of simply doing nothing to quiet your mind. It may sound too simple or even odd when compared to the countless teachings and techniques that promise quick results. Yet the truth is that real silence comes from disinterest in mental chatter. The mind, when not fed by constant engagement, becomes like a gradually waning fire. Eventually only cool embers remain, and those embers too will fade in due course. When you trust this process, your life transforms at a fundamental level. Peace becomes your constant companion. Even if challenges arise, you respond appropriately in each situation, but without the burden of anxious or fearful thoughts. You remain open, patient, and loving, for you have seen that everything unfolds as part of a mysterious harmony. Therefore, my friends, rest in the realization that you do not need to chase liberation. You do not have to reach some unattainable state. You are already the changeless, eternal presence, You are the infinite light behind the temporary drama of thoughts, emotions, and worldly situations. Honor this in yourself, and you will spontaneously honor it in everyone you meet. Speak and act from that quiet depth. Let the unstoppable stillness of your being reveal itself until every moment of your life becomes an expression of the peace, love, and joy that flow from the core of your true identity. May you all recognize your own boundless freedom, shining here and now. Om Shanti, Shanti, peace.